a whole new thing that I'm doing, and we're going to give everybody a minute to pop in. Hey guys, let me see here who's with us. Hi Linda and Paula and somebody with a couple phone numbers popping in. You guys must be on audio only. Welcome to Coffee and Conversations with Carmen and Summer today. So can we get the normal, yes, we can hear you, everything sounds great in the chat for me, and then we're going to just get started. So I always wait to get somebody to tell me, yes, thank you, Paul, I appreciate it. So I'll tell you what, I'll let Summer introduce herself first today, since most of you know who I am, but we do have a lot of new people registered today. So Summer, go ahead and tell us all about yourself.
All right, so hello everyone. I'm really excited to be here, Carmen, because we talked about this recently, and when we talk, we get in this groove.
Yes.
And, so for those of you who don't know me, I have a program called Gut Rebuilding. My website is gutrebuilding.com. I also host a fermentationist certification program. And I've been doing this work as a health coach and an herbalist officially since 2007. So, I mean, we're literally 13 years this month.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. I've recently got really passionate about the concept of money, like really passionate about it, because I have made millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I have spent millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I just am getting more and more passionate about health entrepreneurs and how to support them to make better decisions around their business, around their finances. And it's just become a natural evolution, because what ended up happening is, over the course of running my business, I started spending more and more time learning about business and less time focused on the health concepts, right? So, I'm still reading the textbooks on fermentation, all this nerdy stuff, but I tend to, at night, instead of reading the health books, I'm reading more business books. And after, I'd say, really primarily the past 5 years of doing that, I feel like I've reached this new place, this new level. And this year, last year, I made a strong commitment in my business to just chop unnecessary expenses. And I decided to stop padding other people's pockets with my money and decided to put it more towards my retirement. It's like, I've been doing this for 13 years. I love what I do. And I've spent a lot of time working my butt off to pay other people money. And I wanted to set myself up for retirement, because I love what I do, but I think it's more powerful when you can do this work from a financially independent place. And that doesn't require that you make millions and millions of dollars to do it. It requires that you're really smart about your money. So that's kind of where I've been just super jazzed and really excited. So that's just a brief summary about me. I will mention, I also make proprietary herbal blends, and my bitters products have been out of stock since, and when I say out of stock, I mean, I can't keep them in stock. We are getting them delivered weekly. We are mailing out literally, as every time they come in, we mail them out the next day. So since November 8th, I have not been able to keep them in stock, because we're getting more orders than what we can make, which is exciting, because bitters are awesome and they're great for digestion. And it's, herbalism is one of my passions. So.
Yeah. And that's exciting also, because that means that people are taking that first step to getting better, right, with their health, and that's digestion. So that's exciting, and congratulations on that. And of course, I'm completely in line with you on this, because I too have been a health coach since 2009. Before I really knew what it really was. I think we both went to the same school. I myself learned more outside of the actual education that I received online by making a lot of financial investments, a lot of mistakes. And I don't say mistakes like I wish I'd never done it, but mistakes like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have given that $4,000 for this training program I didn't need, or perhaps I shouldn't have done all of the promoting for all of these affiliates and maybe worked more on myself, right? So I'm completely in line with you on that. And I think the last time that we actually had a conversation, we both agree that the health coaching space is getting way too saturated with complication. There are way too many things being thrown at coaches that they need to be the experts in and learn everything about and spend all their money on. And in all honesty, and tell me what you think about this, Summer, it's starting to make me feel a little bit, I don't know, not necessarily hopeless, but worried about how many coaches are we going to be able to retain in this industry and in this business and grow if they feel like they have to have all of this technology and all of these fancy things and spend all this money. Because as you know, and I know, it can be very difficult to budget for things when you're just getting off the ground. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is, and I've been there, and I'm, you know what, if I'm being really honest, I'm always in this spot where confidence is a real issue. Confidence comes from experience. And if I'm sitting here not doing the work, if I'm not face to face with a client, I will doubt myself. The confidence, I don't know how to explain it, but if I'm face to face with a client and I'm working with them and I'm, in a group call, leading a group call, working with, anybody, any of my clients, I get off those calls and I'm like, woo! I feel amazing because I know what I'm doing when I'm in there. But when I'm not in it, doing it, there's just these weird little self-doubt demons that come along and try to tell me I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I think that's something that all health coaches can relate to. And I think what the problem that most people are experiencing is they're letting that self-doubt stop them from taking action. And they're letting that self-doubt be an excuse from not helping somebody today or not asking for, some sort of exchange of value for the services being provided. And the truth is like, I have always had those little self-doubt demons come up since day one, right? They haven't really changed, I'll be honest, because as you up level your game, you get more, there's different things to have doubt about, right?
Yes.
And if you are not doubting it at all, you can actually just get really comfortable. I've been in that spot too. So I think what I really wish that most of the health coaches that I know, that I talk with, that I went to school with, who aren't necessarily, taking on a practice for themselves, the one thing I would always say to them is like, you just got to put yourself out there. You've just got to do it. It doesn't matter. You just have to do it. It's not comfortable to ask for money. It's not comfortable to take these steps. It's not comfortable to build a business because we don't know how. But I read this article recently, this guy, Cal Newport. I honestly don't know who he is. I'm just obsessed with his blog. It's about, he talks a lot about musicians and violinists. And I think that he must be a violinist because he talks about them a lot. Yeah. And he did this thing where he talked about like this report on what is the difference between the top 2% violinists, the ones that are out there, that are in the symphonies, that are playing first chair, that are getting paid well, that are being given Stradivarius, like multi-million-dollar, or priceless violins to play. What is the difference between them and the people right underneath them that are teachers of violin, that are like, they're making a living doing playing violin, teaching it, whatever, but they're not quite there in that top elite 2%. And he found the interesting thing is these people are both practicing the same amount each day. They're dedicating the same amount of energy to the craft every single day, which, I think that's an important thing to realize, but there's a difference in what they're doing when they're doing their practicing. The top 2% are spending a large portion of their practice time doing uncomfortable, challenging maneuvers. They're practicing these bizarre, little known scales and trying to get these little fingerings down that are very uncomfortable, and these position changes, and they don't feel good while they're doing it because it's uncomfortable, because learning is super uncomfortable. But guess what? What I'll call the more mediocre players, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean? Yep. That next group down, what they are doing during their practices is they're playing all the scales that they've been playing since the day one that they started learning violin. They're playing all their favorite songs, and they're just running through all the stuff they know. And that is the difference. And I believe that is a very strong corollary to what we do here in health coaching. What is the difference between the top 2% of health coaches and the next group down? And that's the difference. The top 2%, they're doing the hard stuff, and they're not comfortable the majority of the day that they're working, because they're putting themselves out there and they're learning. Yeah. And it's, what happens, it's just very similar to athletics, right? When I was doing CrossFit and I was doing the endurance, and I remember one day thinking, everyone in here, there's probably 90% of the people in here are 10 to 20 years younger than me, right? And I would be like, they don't know how difficult this is for an old lady in menopause and how hard it is to keep up. And I thought, that's just me making excuses for not doing more or better, right? So I started putting more work into it. I started pushing myself more. I started stepping out of that comfort zone where I could actually breathe comfortably and have a conversation with my friends on a run, right? Same type of thing.
And also, I believe, to your point about this, is that when we do the uncomfortable, difficult things that we're fearful of, or, it rewires our brain for bigger and better things, helps us to become more comfortable. So, all right. So let's talk for just a second about what did you, when you first started health coaching, okay? Because I'm sure we've got quite a few new people on. When you were first a health coach, what was your biggest fear about working with clients? Like, just think about the clients that you were about to work with that wanted to hire you. What were you most worried about?
Like, there's two distinct fears I had. So I had a big fear in the initial conversation, asking them for money. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't even tell, like, I could not figure out the whole, like, initial consult for the longest time. Like, yeah. I remember sitting down with this guy, and like, he had all these health issues, and I was able to, and I tried to explain, yeah, I can help you. I'll help you figure out some stuff about, like blending some food and coming up with some ideas for like getting your food to digest more easily. Like, he had major issues. Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, why don't you just tell me all those things now? And I was like, well, because this is my job. Yeah. This is how I make a living. And he was super frustrated with that conversation, even though I was sitting there for free with him, mm-hmm. And I could not close him.
Okay.
And I really was like, I just didn't really know what to say. And I could feel his sort of antagonizing me a little bit and kind of wanting to just, like, he knew what he wanted to get it for free. And he just wanted the help right there. Plus he was desperate. Plus he probably didn't have a lot of money. And I was really just intimidated by the process, and I didn't know what the right things were to say. And I look back now as an experienced entrepreneur, and I go, oh, he was not a good fit. He probably, he probably just didn't have the money anyway. He probably wasn't the right fit to begin with. But when you first start out, you have no idea who you're looking for. You don't know how to tell if people are the right person or not. You don't know how to tell if they're the right people that are going to say yes, or if they can afford it. You don't know how to deal with the financial bulking that people do anyway, which I think, so for me, I'd say asking for money was the number one fear for me overall. Yeah. And then once people would say yes, like, of course people were saying yes as well. And at first it wasn't a lot. Yeah. But you just have to keep practicing until you get better and better. And you do get better and better at it. But then there would be times where I'd be working with somebody and we'd be on like the third session. And I would always have this fear come up when people would get to that place where I realized, I think they've tried everything in my toolkit. Oh, okay. Like, what do I do now? Mm-hmm. And I would kind of, what's the best way to, I would almost like abdicate to them and be like, oh, okay, yeah, they've already done this all. And I'd kind of like feel bad about myself and be like, I guess I can't help them really. And I'd be trying to figure out how to help them. And then I just felt like I was floundering during the session. And I could tell that it was like, their trust in me was waning during that session as well. Like, it was just so awkward in those moments. Yeah. Yeah. Again, and I think, can I say this too, though? I think, and I agree with you on both of those things, because I was there too. And I remember the feeling of, oh gosh, I should probably just tell her for free what this is. Just this one thing, right? Yeah, which ended up in the hour-long consultation or meeting at a coffee shop for free and all that. That stuff did not last for me. I figured out very quickly that did not feel good to me. And learned how to be able to do that 15-minute consultation on the phone where I didn't give everything away, and that I let them know this is what, I do for a living. But I think one of the things that's important to note here is that if you go scrolling through any news feeds where there's people like us out there that are trying to help people, you will almost always find someone that posts something along these lines. Why don't you just tell us what the cure or the fix is for the problem? People are sick. You should just help us, right? Oh my gosh, right? You're just like, are you serious right now? And I always say, I always reply to those things, and it's more like just, let me just put you down in your place here. Would you take your car in and ask for a free oil change? This is what we do for a living. So with that said, I also want to speak to what you said about getting nervous, like, oh my gosh, we're getting to the end of our 3-month relationship and they're still not where they want to be. And one of the things I learned about that very early on was that I was taking more responsibility for them taking action than they were taking for themselves. Right.
It's
That's
not our
exactly.
responsibility on whether or not they reach their goals. Have we done the best we can? Have we given them everything that we feel that we could give them? But have they done the work?
I would say that's exactly it. And the reason that I was getting into that situation with people is because I was doing what I would consider like dead end health coaching, where I was like, have you tried taking out dairy? Have you tried taking out gluten? Have you
Yes.
tried taking out nightshades? Right? Like I call that dead end health coaching because all you're doing is randomly suggesting random things to a person based on things that you've heard could help. Right? And for me at this point, the kind of health coaching that I do is very different. People do love to still ask me all the nitpicky questions. How many milligrams of L-glutamine should I take? Is bone broth, blah, 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 blah. I am constantly trying to shift those conversations into more of a coaching conversation. And I think that what most people need to understand as a health coach is that our entire culture is trained in disease care. Mm-hmm. Every consumer is trained to go to a practitioner, including us, have them save them, have them tell them what to do, and they will get better. It's a disease care model that is broken. And well, it's not broken for the pharmaceutical industry. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
They're winning in the disease care model. But for us, that's not the path that we want people to take. So we actually have to break out of the disease care model if we want to help people. So what that means is that now my conversations, when somebody is like, how much L-glutamine should I take? How much, is bone broth the right choice? Which one should I be doing? Blah, 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 blah. Nitpicky question after nitpicky question is I start bringing it back to them. I start asking them questions about their, talk to me about your life, talk to me about your habits. Like if we got this L-glutamine piece right, is that really going to be the answer? Because the question in the first place is, why are you sick?
Yep.
And you not having enough L-glutamine is not why you're sick.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that you're not well is because your life is not set up in a way to where you can be high functioning, happy, and well. And so that's what, as a health coach, that's where my sweet spot is. So let me help you examine your life and figure out where you can, how you can set yourself up to be high functioning, and how you can figure out what strategies need to get in place so that the question about L-glutamine, you could bring that to a naturopathic doctor, or you could bring that to another practitioner who wants to nitpick with you on that. Whereas the work that we could do could actually completely bypass the need for all of these various, supplements and things like that, because what we're doing is trying to create a high functioning lifestyle. And then I see with my clients over and over, if we can work through their biggest stressors and help them realize that like a lot of people are obsessed with food. Why? They're obsessed with food because food they can control. Mm-hmm. They can control what goes into their mouth, but the food is not the number one thing that's causing their problems. If you look across the world at the blue zones, the number one thing that all the blue zones have in common is community. Mm-hmm. They have solid communities. Yep. So really you have to be teaching your people how to have solid communities. Why do they have solid communities? Or why does the solid communities work? Because it means they have less stress. That's why they're healthier with solid communities. It reduces their stress. It makes them feel needed. They see their place. They're now a functioning part of humanity. Yeah. And so they can actually get into the parasympathetic state. Mm-hmm. They're having more interactions with other humans, and now they can be healthy. They can smoke and drink and, do these things on the, and they're somehow still living to 100 and something years old because they have this parasympathetic piece figured out. They have those strong community bonds. So that's the piece that I want more and more health coaches to not get trapped into the dead end health coaching of take out the gluten, take out the dairy, because you're not going to be able to help people for very long there. It's going to be much more productive if you can get to that place where you can say, I know that food feels like the most important thing in your life because you can control it, but really, what's the number one biggest stressor in your life? For a lot of people, it's finances or relationships. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for some people, it's purpose, self, sense of self kind of thing. But I think those are three top ones. And if you can help people start to navigate making better decisions in their lives around those things, the food just doesn't become as important. And then they can get away from all the, I think a lot of people even end up with these various orthorexia and issues around food because they're obsessing around this one thing that they can control, when the real issues are coming from things that are just, they can control, they just don't feel like they can.
Yeah. Or they can't see it. And, to that point as well as, one of the things that I really like to focus on is connection, because even if we have a community, right, we have family or we have community around us, if we don't feel an innate connection to those people, like being able to be vulnerable and share the things that scare us and worry us or the things we need help with, it doesn't really matter, right? We have to open ourselves up to that. And then also I want to say this too, and I'm with you on the dead end coaching. I'm so damn tired of elimination diets and liver cleanses. I could just pull my hair out. So 2020 for me has been more about how do we get back to the basic stuff here? Are we sitting around a table eating together? I don't care if it's pizza that you bring home. Are you sitting at a table with your family? Or are you continually eating every meal out and don't even know what whole food is, right? And I know you've experienced this when someone says, well, I eat really clean. And then you get their intake form, which, mine's 26 pages. So I know everything about you by the time I get down to the end of that. And they're eating clean, whole grain bread, most of them don't even realize, even if it's in a package and it has 4 or 5 ingredients, there may be something in there that just doesn't work for them. Right. So clean eating is just that term I think has been, I don't know. I'm just ready to throw it out. I'm so tired of it. What was your first, clean eating cookbook? Mine was Toscarino. Do you remember her?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like forever ago.
Clean eating cookbook. I mean, for me, it's funny that you asked this because I literally, like, you can see there's nothing behind me. I used to have a bookshelf back here. I'm moving I have bought a house and I'm moving my office over there. And I literally just put all of my cookbooks in one big box. And I just saw all of them. I'm not sure which one my first one was, but I can tell you that it's not my first one, but it was one that I was really obsessed with, was Rainbow Green Live Food Cuisine by Dr. Gabriel Cousens. So he, it's kind of like a raw food cookbook, and he wrote this book, to help people clean out their biotrain. It actually makes a lot of sense. There's some really cool stuff behind it, but if you eat that way, you're just eating like mostly nuts, and it's like really heavy fat.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually pan out for a long-term sustainable diet, but yeah, and it's also, I would say, extremely, I'd say it's extreme in terms of diet. I mean, it's extreme.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think back to and I like to think back on when I started this whole journey of my own, trying to figure it all out. And I remember the first time I had a food allergy test and the elimination diet was handed to me and all of those things. And I was just overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed because the food allergy test said I was allergic to everything I ate every day. Well, then I found out, that's why I showed, sensitive to those foods. And then I thought, I've been eating almond butter instead of peanut butter and this instead of this. Why am I not healthy? Here's this elimination diet. Now you don't get to eat that either, right? So for me, I learned very early on working with clients that the best way to lose a client was to overwhelm them with all of these things that we thought were best for them. So I always tell my coaches, I'm like, can we just underwhelm people a little bit? Can we just do it one step at a time and really just lower that stress idea around what it means to get healthy? Yeah. What's your first thing that you suggest with people besides looking at their stress? Because I think we're in total agreement. You can't reduce or manage it, but you can at least see it differently, ask for help when you need it. So, when you get an intake form or however you work, when I get an intake form, I pour through the whole thing. I look for the stressors, and then I want to know, where do you want to begin? So what's the first thing you do when you work with people?
Well, the largest group of people that I work with is my gut rebuilding people. I mean, it's a group program. So I don't get intake forms in the exact same way, which is interesting, but I think it's worth talking about for a moment, because I think a lot of people want to do group programs, and I mean, it's been awesome. Yeah. Right. Like it really, I don't have to trade my dollars for hours anymore, because I can have at least on Zoom, I can have 500 people at a time. And I can buy more space if I needed more than that at a time, but like, I can have, hundreds and hundreds of people in this group at once without it causing much problem. The scaling, it's not much more effort. So what I do with them, I have them, we talk about food first, because that's what a lot of people want to hear first. And then I just get that out of the way really quickly in the first week. And then the rest of the program, we are literally talking about herbs. We're talking about stress. We're talking about lifestyle. We're talking about emotional detox and trauma. But the first step after food is pH. I actually have them test their saliva pH, their urine pH. Then we do one called a lemon test. And the reason I do that is because it's a biofeedback that allows them to see how acidic their body is, which correlates directly with stress. Some people question my science. Even people in my program, they'll be like, I've seen the science on this and it doesn't look like this is very accurate, blah, 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 not very scientific. However, I can't drop it, because what I have found, and I learned this, I came across this from a naturopathic doctor online. I was doing a program with them and I learned about testing pH. I delved into it further and learned some other ways from other practitioners how to test pH. And I put it all together and I started doing it with my probiotic power cleanse. So I would do this cleanse usually a couple times a year. It's all automated now. And when I was running it live, I'd usually have 100 to 200 people in it at a time. And I learned that if their pH tests were on the acidic side, that they weren't able to go into the deeper phase of the cleanse. They actually, if they were to go into like an all juice or all liquid portion of the cleanse, even for a day or two, they would have massive cleansing reactions. And if their pH numbers were more alkaline, if they were a little bit higher, they were able to go into the deep phase safely and not have the same level of cleansing reaction. So I've seen this with thousands of people at this point in my practice. And so I know that there is a correlation here. And so I use that method in the gut rebuilding program so that people have a biofeedback, like literal way to see at home, looking at this pH strip and seeing that when they start eating more nutrient dense, more alkaline forming foods, their pH goes up. And the main thing I would say with that is, even though we're kind of talking about the food and we're talking about alkalinity, one component that I always teach with that is stress. I'm like, if you want to change your pH right now, you could just do like Wim Hof deep breathing exercises, or just start deep breathing or relax or learn how to get in a parasympathetic state. And just from that alone, without changing your food at all, you can get your alkalinity to go up. And so people can see this biofeedback. And it for me, that is a really good step in a program that helps them it just helps people be on board and be able to track their progress every single week.
Yeah. And I'm doing a webinar tomorrow on nitric oxide. And interestingly enough, the company that I'm interviewing had sent me a kit, the little testing strip, same type of thing. You stick it on your tongue, you press it together and find out what your nitric oxide levels are. Mm-hmm. And then they sent me a bunch of free supplements to test this with. So this weekend, my mom and dad, who are in their 70s, came over. My boyfriend was there, and who is probably one of the most laid back, chilled California dudes you'll ever meet, right? And then you've got me and my mom and dad, who are high energy, lots going on, entrepreneur, all of that. And all of our test strips, now we know that nitric oxide depletes as we age, right? But all of our test strips were depleted, and my boyfriend's was optimal. Wow. And I know. And so I absolutely believe, stress undoes all of these things inside of us that we need for cardiovascular health and mitochondrial health and all of that. But I thought that was fascinating. So I completely can see how that could happen with acidity and things like that. Yeah. And again, they're looking at it. It's right there. It's saying to them, this is what's happening. So I think that can be powerful too, to shift that needle a little bit, whereas waiting a month to lose 5 pounds can be defeating, right?
Right.
Yeah. Give up, all these calories, or give up all the food you love. And maybe in a month you'll lose 5 pounds. They're like, but look at this test strip and we can do this, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the group coaching for a minute, because you and I talked about this the other day too. It's something that I train on and teach coaches to do, again, so we don't have to burn ourselves out. So, when you work with people, do you find that, first of all, do you have a group, a group that you have open for them to go into for gut rebuilding so they can support each other in between your calls? Do you have, okay. So tell me about your experience with that, because I run 4 different groups. I want to hear your side of it. Like, what's it like being a coach that runs a group? Because so many coaches are like, I don't have time to get in there every day, and I don't have time. I'm like, well, people need to start to learn to know, like, and trust you. So you're going to have to find the time to at least show up. Yeah. So how do you do that? Well,
so, you just have to go in there and answer the questions. Here's the way that what I've done it in different iterations over time. So at first I would go in there and I'd answer everybody's questions really detailed, and I'd get really overwhelmed. The goal isn't really to answer every single question there. The goal is to answer, for me, I answer the questions on the twice monthly calls, and that's where we go in depth. What's really meant to happen in the Facebook group where we're chatting in between. It's really meant for a place where they support each other and they keep directing each other back to the material. The point of being in the gut rebuilding program is to get through the program at least once, ideally multiple times, so that each time you go back through it, you do it at a deeper level. So you're like, you go back through, and because I don't want people to try to take on everything. So I always say the first time through the program, maybe all you do is listen to every single call. Maybe you don't actually implement one single thing. The point is to do whatever you're capable of doing. Do not stop and get to the next lesson. When the next lesson is released a week later, you need to listen to that. If you can do one of the action steps, do an action step. And I list out the action steps. They're very minimal, like you said, under delivering. Like I have one or two action steps and then a gold star action step for people who may have already done everything in that module, which for some of the modules is very unlikely. But for some of them, I'm aware, like with the food stuff, if they've done that piece, I have some gold star action steps in there. So my main thing is just having them directed back to the materials. What did you learn? What did you learn in this call? Stay focused on this week's module. What are you learning? What are you implementing? Mm-hmm. If they get too crazy with questions, I'm just like, this is for the calls. And that way we can just simplify it. And so then one of the next iteration was hiring a moderator. I had, at one point in time, still, I have hundreds and hundreds of people in this group at a time. And so I have a Facebook moderator that goes in there and answers people's questions. Again, they are trained as a health coach too, and they're being trained to say, go back to this module. It's over here. Go back to Summer's module about this and read through and see which one you're going to work on. Because we can't just sit there and give every single answer away all the time. It's not a 24-hour, info service. Right. And then the other fallback is, it sounds like you might need to set up an individual session with Summer. Mm-hmm. So that's like a response. And I'll say that if I'm answering, this sounds like you need to set up an individual session with me. Because this is, it's not something I can just type in. Like I generally say, I have too many questions for you. I have so many questions for you that I can't even begin to know the answer until I've heard what you have to say. Right. And so you just have to be comfortable with that. And I think it's a self-worth thing. You have to be comfortable with, you are redirecting people. You are in some ways sort of saying, no, I'm not going to answer this for you right now. And you just have to be comfortable with that so that, you're not worried, because if you're not comfortable with it, it will leak through and people will get annoyed with you and be like, we want more. And you have to just learn how to kind of like send them to the right place. Yeah. Boundaries, right? Boundaries. Yeah. Protective of your time. Yeah. So let's talk about a couple of the things that, when you said earlier, when we first got on, you were talking about how, you've made millions of dollars and you've spent millions of dollars. I haven't made millions of dollars, but I feel like I've spent millions of dollars here in the last few years. Opening the school was quite an expense, getting registered with the state of Tennessee, all of those things. And I think that when we last talked and I was telling you, I got rid of this and I got rid of that. And I let this person go and that person go and this. And what I realized last August or September in evaluation was, I didn't need about 70% of the things that I was paying for. Not the platforms or the people or the processes or any of that. Getting back to the simplest kind of foundation for my business. So what things, what would you say are the top 5 things, and I mean, it could be different for everyone, new coaches or whatever, that people really do need to focus on to build their business? Not the 6-page fancy branded website. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about a new coach who's just trying to get some clients in the door and start building a business. Yeah. I mean, the way I did it, and like, if you were to if for whatever reason we were to I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example of how my business would not exist right now, because I can't think of a way, but if for some reason, let's just say somebody bought my business. Okay, that's a great example. So let's say somebody bought Gut Rebuilding from me, Guts and Glory, and I handed it off. And I don't have any of that anymore. They're taking it over. They've taken it all on. And I have to start from scratch. If I was to start from scratch today, I would do exactly what I did before. I would go out and I would, in my community, teach classes probably twice per month. Mm-hmm. At every single class, I would teach different classes until I found the ones that really started filling up. right? So you go out there, you get other, and here's a key. You want to teach classes at places like chiropractors' offices are great places to do this. Grocery stores, like natural food stores, herb shops, just various things like that. Juice bars. I mean, there's all sorts of places to do this stuff, especially places they close at night. It's a perfect time. They can open the doors. They can host a whole bunch of people at their location. The ideal situation is where that location is hosting the actual registration process. So you don't have to register people. You don't have to do all of the nitty gritty details when you're starting out, which could take up all your time. Plus, it can be really emotionally demoralizing if people aren't signing up. Then you're like, no, and it's a lot of work because you may not know all the things that you need to do, and you're so attached when you're in it like that. You're so attached. Like every no feels like somebody stabbed you through the heart.
Yeah.
So I think just making sure that registration process is being handled by the other company. Your goal is to show up. Ideally, that company even buys some of the supplies for you, if you can work that out. If I'm teaching it for free, if they're not paying me, I'm like, okay, buy all the supplies, and that's usually a no-brainer for these folks because you're providing so much value for their customers. So I'll show up, and what I have on hand is I have some raffle prizes of some sort, usually directly correlated with the content that we're talking about that night. Let's say it's a making sauerkraut class. I'm going to have jars of sauerkraut that at the end of the class I'm going to give away. And I usually bring 10% of how many people have signed up. If there's 70 people in that room, I'll bring 7 jars of sauerkraut. If there's 10 people in that room, I'll bring 2. Right? And what I do is at 15 minutes before class is over, and I stick to a tight schedule. You do not want to go over in these classes because you might feel like you don't want them to ever leave. Oh my gosh, and all this stuff. But you have to be on a tight schedule. It has to feel easy for them. They have to feel like you're able to let them into your world and then let them go and keep them wanting more. And so 15, 20 minutes before the class is over, before I do any Q&A, I hand out evaluation forms, and my evaluation forms have a place for them to put their email address to get on my newsletter. It has a coupon on there. Like if they want to do a session with me, they can come pay for a one-on-one session tonight at this discounted rate and come see me at the end of the class. And there's I usually have 3 check boxes. I come up with 3 things that I'm essentially selling: my newsletter, my email list, some sort of cheaper thing, and some maybe more expensive thing that I might not expect them to buy, but I'm seeding it. I'm letting them know that there's something else that I do bigger out there in the world. And what I do is I say, okay, I'm going to give you guys just a few minutes. We're just going to, I've just had a lot of information. I want you to fill these out completely. And anyone who has completely filled these out, you're going to hand them back to me, and I will pull from the ones that are completely filled out, and I have the raffle prizes to give away. And there's also room for a testimonial. They can write a testimonial about the class on the back. And so what's really key about that, those eval forms are gold when you're starting out. They are gold.
Oh my gosh,
because if they're written correctly and you're asking the right questions of them, you're going to find out how to become a better presenter. You're going to find out what they loved. You're going to see nice words written about you. It's going to boost your confidence. And you have an opportunity to give them something free at the end so they feel like they're winning, but you have their email address. At the end of the day, you got their email address. And that's how I built my list to 1,200 people. The first 1,200 people on my list were people I had met in person and put manually into my database. And so my first 1,200 email list, when I launched my first digital program, a lot of people bought because they all knew me. They all knew who I was. And what I do is when I'm picking up those eval forms, I put all the ones on top that are completely filled out. And if somebody didn't write a testimonial on the back, if somebody didn't put their email address, they go on the bottom. I only raffle out the ones on the top. And it's not a true random raffle. I mean, I'm kind of looking as people are handing them, and I'm sort of flipping them over and looking as I'm walking around the room. I pick the ones of the most engaged people. Those are most likely the best clients for me. I think about people who I resonate with, who I like. If they get on my nerves, I'm not going to pick them. No offense. It's not a judgment. It's not rude. It's just that I'm picking the people who are the best students, who I most resonate with, because if I give them something at the end of the raffle, at the end of the class, they're more likely to work with me later on. And at least I left a good impression with the people who I cared about most during that class.
Right. So did you have a website? Did you have a website when you started, or did you just get email addresses and start communicating with them in an organic way?
I did not have a website when I first started.
Me either. Yeah, I built my first one. It was very pretty. Non-functional, but beautiful. I'm like, what's an opt-in? I didn't even know what that was. I just knew I wanted a place where people could go and see all the pretty food pictures I took and read the blogs I wrote. But I didn't have a clue about any of that. So it was like 1 or 2 pages and that was it.
Mine was not pretty, but it was very functional. And I do think that functional works really well. Pretty does not, pretty, actually, I think pretty can be a disservice.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a certain point in your journey, if you've been doing it for 10 years and you're making a living at it, your clients want to see the progression of you. They want to see you grow, but you don't, still, if you get too fancy, too flashy, too many moving parts, it will be a disservice. Number one priority with a website is always functionality. However, I mean, just to answer your question, like that's what I would do. That's the simplest way that I would do this. I think it's get in front of people, talk to people, because if you're starting out and you want to have a business like I have, where you know, I mean, if I'm being truthfully honest with you guys, I don't work a lot. I make great money. I don't work a lot. I like what I do a lot. It's really enjoyable. And I mean, I could take a day off if I need, like, it will not matter if I did not work for the rest of today. You know, I have enough flexibility in my schedule. I've set things up to where it's just okay. Yeah. And so that, like, the reason that I'm telling everybody that is it took me a long time to get here. And if you're like, oh, I want what Summer has, well, I didn't just get here, right? Like I put in the time, I developed the content, I put out the content, like I did all of this work. When I first started out, I was working 7 days a week, you know, and I was working really hard because I didn't know what I was doing at that time. And you just have to keep figuring it out. But I'm telling you right now, do get in front of people, because if you try to create the online business without knowing what the reactions are on people's faces to your content, if you want to just create an online course, here's the challenge. I'm going to just be honest. The challenge, my biggest challenge, the one thing that I am missing from my day-to-day work life is interaction with people. I've created a business where I don't have to work all that much, but I don't get to interact with my clients face-to-face unless I have a one-on-one consult. And when I do interact with them, I'm interacting with my gut rebuilders twice a month for an hour each. So I have 2 hours, you know, where I'm interacting with them per month on Zoom. The rest of the time that I'm working, I'm not getting face-to-face time with people. And that's, if you don't know how your information is sitting with people, you're not going to understand why your program may not be selling enough. You're gonna be like, I don't know, maybe it's my sales page. Maybe it's, you know, my website isn't pretty enough. Maybe my content sucks. Maybe my content's great. I'm overwhelming people and they're not getting through. Like, you're not gonna know all those answers. You're gonna have too many variables and you're not gonna be able to whittle it down. Whereas when I was teaching these classes in front of people, my first gut rebuilding program I ever taught was in person. My first cleanse I ever taught was in person. I would meet with people every week at this B&B, and like 5 of the people in the class were my closest friends. And I somehow convinced them to pay me some money to do this, you know, but like, here's what I got to see. I got to hear them ask the questions. I got to see their confused faces when they didn't understand what I was explaining, which would allow me to keep explaining until they understood. And then I got to see when their eyes lit up. So those phrases where their eyes lit up, those were the things, that's what I needed to say. So and even here, I mean, just so that you guys know, like, even as I'm talking right now, I see some of the comments, but I don't know if this is landing for you guys because I can't see your faces. I don't know. Thank you to, I think it's, I can't see what her name is, Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl, for saying what you said. This is priceless info. You are 2 of my favorite ladies, by the way. Like, thank you. Murar, I don't know how to say your name, Murar. That says great value. So, I mean, thank you, both of you, so much for saying something, because that like fuels me in this kind of interaction, because otherwise I don't know if this is interesting or not.
I am so with you. Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, my first class, they called it a nutrition class at a CrossFit gym. And I was like, I don't use that word. I'm not a nutritionist, but whatever you want to do, you know. And I remember standing up in front of them. I need to go find those pictures somewhere. It's so long ago, but standing up in front of these people, and there was probably 30 people there, and I knew probably 10 of them, right? And I remember like looking at them all, taking notes and scribbling, and oh my gosh, you mean we don't have to give up everything we love? We can do this in steps. The feedback that people can give you from expression alone or body, you know, their movement, or whether they stay for the whole class, or if they like gaze off somewhere because you're getting too deep on the thyroid or the endocrine system, it's priceless. Feedback is everything. It's everything.
It is everything.
Yeah, and
you miss that with online.
Yeah, you can love everything you're putting out there, but if what you're putting out there doesn't resonate for people, it's worthless. Are you speaking their language? Are you giving them what they need? You know, are we speaking to what their pain points are? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about your free. So when you said, so my kind of template for teaching groups is, if you can get in front of someone, let a practitioner, someone host you, right? To collaborate. You go in and do a free talk, they host you, and it leads to a paid program, class, one-on-one, like you were just talking about, right? So how many of those, what would you say that your conversion was when you first started out with that kind of thing, to get people from the free talk into the paid relationship or class or something like that?
Well,
because mine was low to start.
Because mine was really high at first, because I had 1,200 people on my list who all knew who I was.
Yeah.
So I was getting like 30% conversion rates on things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so when I say conversion rate, I mean, of all the people who opted in for the freebie, 30% of those people were buying.
Yep.
Which is unheard of today.
Yeah.
Right? It's unheard
Totally.
of. Right. And so today let me think here. It depends on which one we're talking about, but like today my conversion rates are 4 to 10%. Mm-hmm. Which is not, I mean, that like, and I think it's useful for you guys to hear that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because what you start to realize is like, you have to really have a strong list building strategy in place. You have to know more and more people are coming onto your list if you're converting at 4 to 10%. And I'll be honest, it's the wild, wild west out there. And so, you know, the best advice I can give to somebody who wants to do the online piece, which I mean, it's awesome. It is really accessible. You reach people all over the world. Like my fermentationists are literally the most diverse group of people I've seen anywhere. They're all, I mean, all over the world. We show up on Thursdays for our calls. They are from India, they're from Mexico, they're from Japan, they're from the Netherlands, the US. We have more international students than US students at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's outrageous and it's awesome. And that's really a cool aspect of having your programs digital. But I think what I would say to people that are starting out is like, definitely do the in-person stuff first, get that built up. And then as you're getting clearer and clearer about what you need to do online, the very first step, and this is going to shock most of you, the very first step at this point, this is just right now in this day and age, this is what I'm working on. Like I work as a consultant with other people in their businesses. Mm-hmm. And I'm literally like, I'm working with 2 huge brands right now, helping them develop this. And the number one thing that you have to do if you're starting out online, before you create your program, before you do anything, I want you to just start creating some content and getting it out there and seeing what kind of feedback you get from that content.
Yes.
And if, you know, I teach people how to create online courses as well. I have a whole course on that. And yeah, I want everybody to come take that. But at the same time, I'm learning and I'm seeing that you have to be creating some content somehow consistently, high value content. So whether you're doing it on YouTube, Facebook Live, whether you're doing it on, I don't know, let's say like a podcast or a blog, it doesn't matter. But whatever it is, pick one and knock people's socks off. And, you know, and then over time, as you develop your audience, you have a freebie available there, something, you know, you can even create the content and develop the freebie over time based on what people say.
Yes.
But that first step, and I know it's not easy for people. So you have to keep doing your one-on-one in-person stuff or your group, you know, teaching, you know, your group classes in person. And as you're doing that, you want to be creating killer content somewhere that starts to develop and build that audience. And then that is going to be the secret to having a successful launch. So your first program that comes out is going to be extremely successful.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there's a lot of times that I believe that health coaches think that if I just buy this done for you program and take that and run with it, that's going to be my moneymaker. That's going to be the thing. I don't have to create anything. I'm just going to use this done for you program by so-and-so and do that. Right. But what I always say is this: well, have you gone through that program? If you're going to recommend some sort of a diet or a cleanse, have you done it yourself? Do you understand what's involved in all ways, physical, emotional, financial? because it's not just as simple as thinking you're passionate about, you know, a liver cleanse and going out and teaching it if you don't know it and you haven't been through it, right? So I'm with you on creating content. I mean, I've written, you know, almost 11 years of content from health coaching for the school, you know, and when something comes up, I get excited, want to write more. But in the meantime, I was pounding the pavement, throwing the computer in the car, getting someone to pick up my kid, meeting at the coffee shops, teaching on Saturday mornings, doing classes, and you know, and then writing and writing and writing. But amongst all of that, I also believe in surveys and polls too. I like to ask my people, like, you know, what do you want to learn about? What do you need? You know, what's important to you? And I think that that's one of the simplest things that's missing is, why don't you just ask people what they want to know?
I always ask. I mean, that's the thing. If you're on my list, you'll see I do a survey at least once per year, sometimes more often, because I just need to know. I want to know what people are curious about, what they're thinking about. And just, I'll go ahead and tell you this, because this is just where I'm headed with stuff. So I am working on a podcast myself right now, which I never really thought I would do, because, you know, I have all these other things that I do. And I'm working on this podcast, and I'm actually creating one. I'm not sure the title yet. It's in the making. I'm going to call it something like maybe the part-time entrepreneur, or somebody wanted me to call it share the wealth. But I want to do one for wellness entrepreneurs on being like how to become financially independent as a wellness entrepreneur. And the reason I'm excited about this podcast is because like I said, I've made millions and spent millions, and I've watched many of my colleagues do the same thing. And I've also, the biggest challenge for us as health coaches is we do this thing called reactive marketing, where we start, okay, so you're talking about, you ask people what they want, right? And that's some information for you. But then there's the things that you want to teach. And if those things, like, let's say they don't intersect, you're not going to be having fun anymore.
Right.
They want this, you're teaching this, those two lines never cross. Well, your life is not going to be fun in a few years.
No.
Ideally, you want to find this point where what they want and what you teach intersect, where you love teaching this, they want to hear about it. Boom. That's the point that you want to be teaching on. And that's going to sustain you and fuel you. Right. And so to me, if you aren't focused on like the business side of it, if you don't know what that is, and you still need to learn about that, you need to learn about like how to spend money and where to put your money. The answers to those questions are really important early on, so that you don't end up in a situation where you're having to do reactive marketing, or you're having to market something that you just don't care about that much.
Yeah. And what you said earlier was really cool. And it's something that I always tell people in my trainings and teaching, is that I spent so much time learning about every single health condition known to man. I mean, every chronic disease, every symptom. Oh my gosh, you know, in the very beginning, thinking the more I know, the more clients are going to come to me, right? And, you know, Sean Croxton is in so many of my trainings, because he's the one. I was on the phone with him, and he said, or no, it was an email. We talked on the phone and we did an email, and he sent in the email, you know, look behind you on your bookcase or wherever you keep your books. How many books on health do you have, and how many books on business? I had one book on business on my shelves, and I have hundreds and hundreds of books, right? Think and Grow Rich, right? And that was it. The rest of it was health. And I'm like, I already know enough. And that's one thing I try to tell coaches all the time. If you can go out and learn it on Google, or find a resource that can take you deep dive into the experts, functional medicine, PubMD, whatever, about a condition or a problem, but you have no idea how to run your business, you're focused on the wrong things. 100%. Yeah.
And yes. And I would add to that too, which is, back in the day, I used to be really afraid to refer out, because I was afraid I was going to lose clients. And now I literally, on every single group coaching call, I am referring to various doctors and practitioners. I'm like, you know, you should go to so-and-so. This person is really great for this. And I'm referring out to these people, and these people are still showing up every other week to these calls. And I have a membership. Once they are done with gut rebuilding, it's an 8-week course. They can stick around in that membership and keep coming to those calls ongoing. And we have people who stay in there for years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are they sticking around? And I realized, well, they're sticking around because I have a superpower here. They're sticking around because there's something that I am giving them every single time they get on this call. And it's not something that doctor is going to give them when they do a GI test on them and tell them, you know, what's going on with their bowels. That's not why that person is there with me. They don't, because I don't do diagnosis. I don't do stuff like that. They're there with me because I give them hope, and I show them that it's possible, and I show them how to take 100% responsibility for their health. And I live that life myself. And I'm constantly trying to become a better person for me. And I'm every other week, bringing the tools and tricks that I'm learning in my day-to-day life to them. So it's like, I'll be like, hello, well, guess what I'm learning today? This is what I've been working on the past few weeks, and I'm telling them like, hey, I've been working on stress and how to get in the parasympathetic nervous system for the past probably like 6 years, very diligently. And here's where I'm at with it. Here's what I've just learned this week. It's pretty profound for me. And then you just see they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And so they're having these moments where they're just having these epiphanies, these aha moments. And I mean, I think that's the piece around all of this that we forget. We get afraid and we don't realize it doesn't matter how much you know, because for me, it's not what I know that they're there for. It's the way I'm teaching it. It's the enthusiasm. It's that realness. It's the passion. It's the clarity. And it's the fact that I walk my talk.
Yeah.
And all of those pieces, I'm truthful with them. I'm honest. I talk about like the way that I eat, and like when I break down they all know I eat. If I am going to go for something sweet, they know I'll eat a cupcake. Like I bet everybody in my gut rebuilding program knows that I love cupcakes.
Right.
Because I'm freaking honest, and I just learned at a certain point in time, I can't keep acting like putting myself on a pedestal and acting perfect. I have to be real, like completely real. Like I struggle just like you struggle.
Yeah.
But the difference with me and the difference with the people who are still learning from me is that I literally like never give up. Like there is no obstacle that comes in front of me that's ever going to take me down or let me give up. Like I don't know. And even if I eat that cupcake, I have so much self-compassion for myself in that moment, and I get through it. And I get back up the next day and live my, like, I'm not even hard on myself about it. Like, I don't even care like I used to care. I used to beat myself up about that.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's something really special about practitioners, especially health coaches, learning how to go out there and be so transparent and honest and vulnerable about who you are, really, what your real struggles are, what you're able to accomplish. And that is going to help people feel so much more solid about the work that you're doing, because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, she actually does get me.
Yeah. Authenticity, 100%. And that brings us back, and we're about to wrap up here in just about 5 or 6 minutes here, but brings us back to community. So yes, people are stressed out, and because everyone's isolating themselves in this world of disconnection and technology, right? So when you provide, and it's the same thing that I do with my membership group as well, and my students, when we provide a community where people feel connected and they're led by people with authenticity, hey, I had a cupcake yesterday. It was my birthday, right? And so I nursed this gluten-free cupcake, like, cause number one, it's too sweet. But you've seen me go down on a donut at Southern Squeeze like it's nothing, right? That matcha donut. Hello. And I'm not hard on myself either. And I think one of the things that we have in common is that we don't give up. We persevere. And what is it? The definition of grit is like perseverance and passion. Do you have a passion for what you do and who you're helping? And can you get through the times where someone says, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, or you don't know, or, give me everything for free, or that was a failed launch. Like, what do you do with that? You go, well, crap, what did I learn from that? What didn't work? And then let's do the opposite of that, right? Absolutely. Yeah. So there's one question, and I know I saw Mary posted earlier, and we may have different opinions about this, but she says, do you believe all coaches need a niche or not? Starting out, I did a webinar many years ago called No Niche, No Problem, because for me, if you've got a heartbeat and a pulse, you're and you want to be well, you're a potential client for me. Sometimes we get paralyzed by believing we have to focus on the 42-year-old woman with perimenopause problems. How about we just focus on people who don't feel well, that need a low stress way to dip their toe in the water to start the process? It makes marketing a little bit more challenging, for sure. Absolutely. But it's not impossible, and you don't close the door to anyone. So for me, I don't believe in the standard conventional niche approach. But the way that I explain it is that I believe if you want to be healthy and you've got a pulse, then you're a potential client and I can help you. So what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I think that when you're starting out, it's really scary to pigeonhole yourself into a niche. I actually think that's a wise way to go into starting out, because I wasn't clear what my niche was at first.
Mhm.
And if you are clear at first, it's only because you have experience working in
Yes.
that niche. You know what I mean? It takes experience working with people to see who you are able to help the most. And I don't think you understand that until you actually start working with people. And I started noticing the patterns. I actually, at first I did all my consultations live in person at first. And so I had all these I still have them. I have them in a file folder over here in this closet.
I have all mine too.
Every single initial health, eval on paper. And what I did when it became time for me to really figure out my niche, this is years into the process, I went through and I looked at why are they here, what problems do they have, and I wrote down all the different things and I put tally marks. I went through every single one. I put tally marks till I saw what were the biggest issues that people were coming to me for. Mm-hmm. And then I looked at those tally marks and I looked at which ones ranked, and I said, which ones was I most able to be successful with people with?
Yeah.
And those were the ones that I decided to focus on in niche. And at first I really focused more on Candida. And then I realized I needed to make it bigger than that. I needed to actually expand more into gut health. And what I would say is I actually think that with niching, there is a time and a place for it. And I think it becomes useful to niche at some point, because if you can niche, then the reason you niche is so that your people know they can self-select to work with you.
Right.
So I think that there's, like with my podcast that I'm creating, my niche is help entrepreneurs who want financial independence. Mm-hmm. Right. That's my niche. And the reason I got clarity about that I've done this enough to know, I already know that's where I'm going with it because I've been in business for a long time. So I know that's where I'm going to, focus on my podcast. But when you're just starting out, you're not going to know what that is. But when I figured out that it was gut health, that was super helpful for me. And so, I would say half of my colleagues think that my niche is fermentation and the other half think it's gut health.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've even I had a hard time niching all the way because I couldn't there are a lot of people who want to ferment who have no gut health issues whatsoever. They're just passionate. They love cooking. They like DIY stuff. They like making things. They're gardeners. They're homesteaders. And then I have all the gut health people who they also want to learn how to ferment, except for the histamine folks. None of them want to learn how to ferment. They need to stay away from ferment. So I have this weird spot with my niching where I have always struggled with aspects of it. Some parts of it have never been clear to me. But the main thing I would say is once you get to that place where you're clear, once you've done what Carmen's saying here, which is brilliant, just go out there. Once you start to niche, I really recommend that people keep it as simple as possible. Create some awesome content and then create a flagship program that your people want. Yeah. And try not to create 10 programs. Try not to create this, and this. Every program, I'm just going to throw, this is a writer downer because I use this with every person that I coach in business coaching, and I constantly use this with myself. Every idea, every program is a business in its own right.
Yes.
Right? So if you aren't careful, you're creating too many avatars and too many niches, you're creating multiple businesses. And once your businesses become more and more successful, you're going to need an Instagram for each of those programs, for each of those avatars. It's it gets very complicated very fast. So when I say I niche to health entrepreneurs who want financial independence, look at that niche. I'm actually really thinking a lot more about the avatar. Who am I wanting to serve rather than what exactly is the niche there?
Exactly. Yeah, that's genius. Absolutely genius. And, that's what I've told people before. They're like, but I think I want to do this, but then I think I want to do this. I'm like, if you build your whole business around the thyroid or weight loss, and then you decide, oh gosh, that's not exactly what I'm interested in. Oh, weight loss depends on digestion. Maybe it's digestion. You're going to be rebranding, changing your copy, starting over. It's just it's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole.
Splitting your time. And to answer Linda's question, Linda said, I have the same issue, 2 different focus topics, health and fitness. And so my best advice for you, Linda, is who do you want to work with?
Yeah.
What kind of person do you want to work with?
Yep.
And that's your focus is are they a motivated individual? Do they shop at Whole Foods? What are they already doing in their life? What makes your ideal customer what do they all have in common? Right. Focus on, and then that you can serve that person with either health or fitness and you're fine. But as long as you're always seeking the same avatar, that will help you streamline your your overall business.
Yeah. And remember, we're really looking at helping two different types of people, the symptom chaser, the overwhelmed symptom chaser, and the standard American person. There's two groups out there to focus on. They all have different challenges, but it's all the same. They're overwhelmed, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Obviously, we need to do another one of these because
yes, we do.
You hear us? We're talking faster because we're done with time and we're like,
I know. Yes. Well, I do coffee and conversations at minimum 2 times a month. So absolutely would love to have you come back, and appreciate that we are so aligned in the way that we think and approach things. And the amount of time we've been in this business is almost, it's very similar. And I just appreciate your entrepreneurial spirit and your not give up-ness, if that's a word. Because I'm the same way. I am that assertive go-getter. That didn't work, fine. F it. Let's do this instead. And there's not a lot of us out there to lead the way to lift people up and help them to find that for themselves. So I think that's really powerful. So I just appreciate you. And I'm glad we're in the same town.
Me too. We're really lucky in that way because we get to have that FaceTime.
Yes.
Hey, everybody who's on here still, I would love just anything that you have to say. One aha from this conversation. It would just help me. I've read everybody's comments so far.
Yep.
And I would just love to hear what is one thing that you got from this, even if it's just inspiration or motivation today, or if it's like a specific point that you appreciated hearing. I would love to know. I mean, I appreciate the thanks, but I want to know what's one thing that you got out of this.
Yeah, definitely.
So one word or a sentence that would mean the world to me.
Focus on business first. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Feeling like I'm not alone is huge. Validation that we can make a good living. Mindset, attitude is everything. Getting face-to-face with people. Fantastic feedback, you guys. Working on content over programs. Yeah. Everything was helpful. And let's just throw this out there too. Summer and I both were you at one point in our business. If you're just starting out, we all started at the same place, in the overwhelmed space of wondering how can we take what we know and help other people in an underwhelming way. So just know that, we've been there and it's possible. Just try not to rush ahead of it and try not to just go grabbing the shiny objects, you guys, because you don't need all the shiny objects to run a business like this. You really don't.
No, you really don't. We can dig deeper into that in another conversation. And if you want to hear another conversation, if you guys want me back, tell Carmen to come talk about.
This makes me cry to know you two have been where I am. Oh, honey, yes, we have. Yes, I'm a starter. I feel I win the lottery. Yes. Okay. Well, of course we're bringing you back. Are you kidding? Just to get to be able to talk to you. Heck, we should just do this at a coffee shop or something sometime too.
We'll just like put up we could do that actually. That'd be amazing.
We could sit and have a conversation. All right. I got a client starting in 20 minutes. Thank you, Summer. Thanks everybody. Appreciate you. And I'll send you another invite and we'll get you on the schedule. Okay. And I'll send you the chat too, by the way, Summer.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. See you guys. Bye.